Hello, friends. Thanks for tuning in to the About to Break podcast. You know, this week, the world of magic lost one of the most influential, not only performers, but minds in all of magic, the incredibly generous Mr. Johnny Thompson. You know, in the few interactions I had with him, all I can say is that Johnny not only loved magic, he loved magicians. And he was so willing to share his experiences with budding performers. Whenever you'd be at a convention, you never hesitate to see Johnny talking with the young guys and just kind of passing the baton. This week is a sad moment for a lot of performers. I was trying to think of how we could honor his memory and his legacy, and I remembered about a conversation I had with Johnny from an episode 83, when I asked different performers to share their horror stories of things that went wrong on stage. Johnny's story is so funny, and he tells it the way only he can. So I thought this week, to start off the episode in dedication and in honor of Mr. Johnny Thompson, let's take a look at one of his classic stories.
I'm Johnny Thompson, and this is my story. The worst thing that ever happened to me, which is, I guess I can refer to as the dove worker's worst nightmare, happened to me on a cruise ship. When I got on the cruise ship, I saw an old friend I hadn't seen in 20 years. He was a harmonica player, probably the best classical harmonica player in the world at the time. And he was suffering from cancer, and he survived 7 years by staying on a macrobiotic diet. So he was on the night before me, and now I'm getting ready, and my wife had to go to the stage left because there was no crossover backstage, so she had to get there before the audience came in this little area that had a door that entered on and off the stage from stage left. So I had to load the birds myself. Well, I get dressed and I'm working. I put all the birds in the top drawer of a dresser so I didn't have to bend down to pick them up and so forth, put the harnesses there. And I get a call from my friend Stan Fisher, and we start talking about the old days and that. So he said, "Aren't you due to go on?" I said, "Yeah." Well, I had planned to enter through the audience and walk up onto the stage, cane and hat. And when I get the birds on, I don't feel them after a while, because if you're aware of them, you know, it's a problem. So I go up, do the hat and cane, put the hat on the cane, produce the first silk out of the air. There's no birds. I run my hands back across my body to make sure, and panic hits. I start doing some knot tricks as I work my way to stage left, and I say to Pam, you know, the way we talk on stage with a frozen ventriloquist thing, "Pam, I have no birds. Bring me anything that doesn't take a bird." And she said, "You have no expletive birds?" I said, "Yes." And so a magician afterwards said to me, "Well, what did you do?" I said, 35 minutes like I was supposed to.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Hey everybody, welcome to About to Break. I'm your host Taylor Hughes, and this week I am delighted to be sitting down through the power of the internet with Gwyn Auger. Gwyn, thanks for being here.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
And where in the world are you right now? Because I know we both have kind of crazy travel schedules at the moment.
It's true. Alberta, which is my hometown, so that's where I am right now. It's about minus 30 outside.
Oh man, I'm here in Southern California, and people are complaining.
That's in Canadian, though.
Wait, minus 30 Canadian? Is that a thing? like Celsius?
Because you guys go by,
Okay.
Yeah, you go by Fahrenheit, so I call it minus 30 Canadian.
No, that's good. I don't even know the conversion. I feel like people in the States just assume everyone's going to accommodate us. It's pretty awful. Like, I don't know how to go to the metric system or anything. Do you know what that would be in Fahrenheit?
I don't, but I bet I could Google it. It's 40 degrees.
Oh, it's 40 degrees. Okay,
so it's minus 22 in Fahrenheit.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, I was in Detroit. I was in Detroit recently, and they were having the polar vortex, and it was the coldest I've ever experienced in my life.
Because you're from California, right?
Yes. Yeah, we're in Southern California. So I live 30 miles east of the castle. And people here are losing their minds. They think it's really cold.
So it's always warm there.
Yeah. I mean, it's like 57 degrees and people are like, this is terrible. I need to have sleeves. Oh my goodness.
I was in LA about almost 2 weeks ago now, and I was walking around in just like a sweater because for me it wasn't cold, and everybody else is getting their jackets, and I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah, you're like, this is a delight. You were in were you in Santa Barbara? Did I see that on? I feel like I saw on Instagram you were at the cabaret opening, right?
I was indeed. Yes, I got to assist Lance on stage.
That is incredible. That is so fun. I see. Okay, now I'm geeking.
It really was.
I'm geeking out a little bit because as a kid, like Lance is he's the king. He's still the king. And I can't imagine getting to perform with him on stage. Have you done this before with him, or was this a?
No, this was the first time that I got to assist him on stage. So.
Oh, that is rad.
It was really a treat. He had told me of this new castle opening, and I said, "Oh, that sounds fun. Sounds like an invite." Because I'm like that, and most of the magicians that I work with know that I'll travel. And he said, "Yeah, why don't you come to the opening? You can assist me." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Don't tease."
Oh, that's amazing.
And he said, "Yeah, no, you can assist me on stage." And I said, "Okay." I said, "When I ask you while I'm there, if you can just pinch me like 100 times,
right,
that'd be great."
Right.
I was beyond excited to be able to go and assist and help. And I'm still kind of not believing that I got to do that.
Yeah. Well, and for those that are listening that aren't complete magic geeks and don't understand where we're coming from here, the founder of the Magic Castle opened another, like a cabaret castle, like Magic Castle Cabaret out in Santa Barbara. And it's this whole new thing. And he got one of the best magicians ever to come and to open it. And you performed with him. That's just amazing to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me too.
So how did you get started in magic? I'm always fascinated to hear what drew people into just being attracted to magic in general, because most people got a magic set when they were a kid, and then some people grew out of it and the rest of us didn't. What was your experience in magic?
Of course, yeah. I like to say I grew into it because I'm very short, so I didn't have to grow that much. But I never got I never got a magic kit as a kid that I can remember. I'd have to ask my parents if I ever did, but I got into magic as an adult. So I have always been friends with performers. I took musical theater in school. I took drama. I was singing. I was doing musical theater all growing up, all that kind of stuff. So it was just natural that I became friends with all of the performers in my life. And so I was in the local magic shop one day. It's called the Vanishing Rabbit. It's here in Calgary.
Yeah.
And Brent Smith, who's the owner, he said to me, you're friends with all of these magicians and talented performers. Have you ever thought about assisting? Because you're the right size. And I said, well, no, but that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Because to me, I thought you had to be born into, I just didn't know how you got to be an assistant. I assumed you had to date a magician or be a daughter or, something, but you couldn't just say, well, I want to be an assistant.
Yeah.
So Brent was very, very kind and said, tell you what, I've got this event coming up. If you can fit in the costume, I'll teach you a trick.
That's great.
So I said, yeah, perfect. And at the time, I lived very close to the magic shop, so it was only about a 10-minute drive.
Yeah.
So I went to the magic shop one day. He said, I brought the costume in. Let me know if you're available. So I went in, tried it on. It fit. It was velvet and sparkly and mesh and everything you envision
a magician costume,
a magician's assistant costume to be. And so, of course, I loved it.
Yeah.
And it fit, so I was thrilled. So he said, okay, come by. I'll bring the trick in next week. I'll let you know what day you can come and I'll teach you a trick. And so I said, okay, great.
Okay.
And I'm, of course, like beyond excited.
Yeah.
So I show up and he teaches me a tip over trunk, and he had this big Mega Magic event in Calgary where actually Pop Hayden was there. So Pop Hayden's like the first big named magician that I got to meet. Which was awesome. And I still love Pop to this day. And so I show up to the event, and sadly, Brent had sold the trick before this auction happened because someone bought it before he could even bring it to the auction.
Yeah.
So I get there and I'm all done up, and it's first thing in the morning, and I've got like my big hair, I've curled it all, I've got big eyelashes, I've got big red lips, I'm ready to go. I'm in this outfit. And he says to me, he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I sold the trick." And I said, Oh, well, that's okay. I can go home. And he's like, no, why don't you stay? You're already dressed. Like, you can stay. You can still help with the auction. We just won't have the trick to perform. So I said, yeah, okay. So I stay. He's like, you can meet all the guys. So some of them I already knew. Yeah. And some I didn't. So I met them all. And of course, they see me, and I'm dressed up like a magician's assistant.
Right.
Big red lips at 8 a.m. And they're all like, "Oh, are you an assistant?" And my answer to every single one of them was, "Well, not yet, but I really want to be." And so they thought that this was, hilariously adorable is what I like to say they thought it as. They probably just thought it was hilarious.
Right.
But bless all of them, they started putting me in gigs or teaching me magic or saying, "Well, do you want to learn this? Well, here, let's watch this, and you tell me what you think you're doing if you were in that trick."
Right.
And then, some of them had the illusion. So if I got the answers right, or if I didn't, we could go and practice it. And they would let me come over and practice illusions, and just so I could learn them and learn how to move in them.
Yeah.
Or there was a show coming up, and they said, "I've got a sword box. Do you want to do a sword box routine?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And then
you're like, "Yeah, I'm down. Let's do this."
Yeah. I was like, "Yeah, okay." And that was for a show called A Brush with Death. And then it was really funny because he said, "Well, I'll put you in a sword box." And I said, "Okay, great." And the posters for A Brush with Death weren't out yet. And I became the poster. And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Because he'd taken a photo of me taking a bow and put a severed head in my hand. And that was the poster. And I said, "Oh my gosh, not even, you're letting me do a sword box and you put me on the poster." So I was beyond thrilled, and these guys were so sweet. So all of the guys really were very, very supportive, and I think it's great. I think they just saw my enthusiasm for it, and they were like, "Okay, we should probably just encourage this." Yeah.
So you didn't learn magic until you were basically going to be in a show, and then you started learning these things. Is that kind of the process of how it went? Like, you discovered, because you were friends with magicians, but you weren't in on the workings of things. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I love to know how things work, and the best way to learn how it works is like to go inside it.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, and a lot of people don't understand. My wife and I, we did illusions for years, and when you buy an illusion, there's no instructions. It's literally just figure it out, and it doesn't work the same for every person. So there is an element as an assistant where you're having to figure out, okay, what's the way that I'm going to make this work? And you're doing all this work that oftentimes people don't get to see, which is fascinating.
Of course, yes. And now, actually, some of the guys in town, some have bought illusions or borrowed illusions, and they don't know how it works. And then I get to be the one that goes over to their house and shows them, how it works, because like you said, they don't come with instructions.
Right. Yeah. And magicians may know, or whoever's on the outside of the apparatus may know conceptually how it's supposed to work. But what a person needs to do physically to make that thing happen is like a mystery even to them.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Well, and I saw too on your bio, you because you have a background in dance and theater. And I remember talking with Ginger.
I do. I have a little bit of a background in dance.
So I remember talking to Ginger, and she said it's fascinating that, we spend, as dancers, we spend so much time practicing every move so that the audience notices every single thing we're doing. And then as a magician, you spend so much time practicing things so that people don't see what you're doing.
Best if they don't see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Bizarre, but I kind of love it.
You have this almost like almost like summer camp attitude about magic, which I love. I hope that sounds appropriate to say. I love your enthusiasm of like, we're going to go have fun right now. Do you want to get in this box and have a bunch of swords go in there? And you're like, yeah, let's do that. You realize that's not how a traditional person would react to that question.
I know, but I mean, it's cool. How many people get to say that they get sawn in half? Like, that's awesome. Why not? You live once.
Right? Now, have you ever had... go ahead.
Are you telling me, Taylor, if you could get sawn in half, if you found a sawing in half that you would fit in, are you telling me you wouldn't want to do it at least once?
Oh, I would want to do it. You wouldn't
want to do it?
I would want to do it, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it would impress anyone because the size of the box would need to be massive with me, but... But I would love to do it. Yeah, I think that's why a lot of magicians kind of idolized Copperfield back in the day, because a lot of his routines he would go in as well. You know, he would actually participate in the illusion.
Yes,
and that was a different take. You know, I think all of us wish we could do that.
But I love that. And actually, one of the guys here in town, the first time I ever went in the sword box, he actually decided that he was going to get in.
Okay.
And it was far too small for him, but he still went in to see it from the assistant's perspective.
Yes.
So we couldn't put the swords in or anything.
Right.
But he still went in to see how it was, and found like sugar and was making sure that those were all taped down. And I thought that was great. I was like, yeah, like you should go in if you get a chance.
Oh, totally.
And I would recommend that to any magician if they have a chance to go in the trick or in the illusion, even if they're not going to fit.
Right.
They should still try it.
I one time was at home
just to see it from both sides, you know?
Oh yeah. I think it's healthy, especially if you're going to ask somebody to do something, you should know what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
One time I was at home by myself and Katie was gone for the day. And I thought, I wonder if I could fit in this stack of boxes that we had. And I thought, I really think I could do this. And so I kind of worked out how I was going to do it. And I wheeled out the prop in the living room and I squeezed myself down into it. and I got in, but I could not get out. And I, no joke, had to wait for assistance for some help to arrive to kind of squeeze me out of this thing I had crammed myself into. It was not I wouldn't recommend doing this alone, but I do think you're right. You should definitely try it at some point.
That's funny. They're not one size fits all.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Now, do you have, because it's one thing to go like, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to go on stage and we're going to do this routine, but let's be honest, it's a very physical thing with the type of stuff that you're doing. There are moments where things go awry on stage. Have you had any of those horror moments on stage that we all like to talk about as performers?
I've been really, really lucky, knock on wood, that I haven't had any major mishaps on stage. There was once with an origami box, where it was missing the back mirror panel.
Okay, yeah.
And you know how the origami has the mirror so that you can see all sides of it when it's being performed.
Yep.
The mirror was missing when I got on top of the box, and the box, of course, was raised up on its I want to say like a platform. And so I climb up on the platform and I realize the mirror is missing. So I say, "Oh, well, we're missing the mirror, so we need it so that people can see all sides."
Right.
And he walked off, leaving me balanced on one foot to go get the mirror.
So you're just standing there.
And I do tell this story often because I was standing there perched on my toes.
Right.
One leg over the panels of the origami and one leg not. One leg's keeping me up. And I'm high up on this. The illusion's probably like 2 or 3 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And I'm on this big stage and, of course, this big sold-out auditorium at the Jubilee here in Calgary. And I just thought, oh, my gosh, don't fall. If you fall, you are going to, get a concussion in front of all of these people.
Oh, my goodness. But it worked out in the end?
Pretty funny.
It
did, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's probably the worst.
What right now are you most excited about in 2019 with the art of magic and your part in it? What just gets you so jazzed?
All of it. There's so many conventions coming up, and I'm hoping to attend most of them. I'm jazzed about learning some stuff on my own. I don't know if I'll do a whole act by myself, but at least I'll have some parts that I could work in.
Right.
If I'm assisting, or just to be a part of some collaborative shows. So yeah, I'm jazzed about all of it. And I think hopefully I'm bringing back the Vanish articles for
Oh, that's great.
Assistants.
Oh, that's
yeah, I've got
great.
some already ready to go. We just haven't I haven't fine-tuned them to send them off yet.
What's the magic community like there where you're at?
Calgary?
Yeah, in Calgary.
Calgary, it's really great. They're all supportive. There's a lot of hobbyists.
Okay.
In Calgary, of course, we've got Brent Smith, who runs the Vanishing Rabbit Magic Shop here in town. We've got some great guys up in Edmonton, which is about 3 hours north of Calgary. So there's quite a few magicians, and there's some in Red Deer, which is kind of in between. So those ones will come to either meetings in Calgary or meetings in Red Deer, which I think is great.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys that used to be in Lethbridge that are now in Calgary. So it's really growing. It's a good group for sure.
So you've got this community of magicians and magicians' assistants and friends who are involved in the art. But then I'm sure, like all of us, you've got family and friends who this is such a foreign thing to them. How did your family react when you said, I think I want to give it a go being a magician's assistant?
Well, my family's really great. They're really great and really supportive. And I mean, they may not understand it.
Right.
Because they're kind of like, you want to do what? But my mother's taught us all never to half-ass anything, which is why I gave myself the name the Magic Assistant. Because I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to do it.
Yep.
So I think, they like that I am dedicated to it and very passionate about it, and they can see that. So they've come to shows. They used to go to all the Brush with Death shows.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're pretty good.
And you had done theater and drama in high school and all of that? Was that always something?
I did drama and theater in high school, and then again I took drama and theater in college. My first year of college, I took mostly languages, but then I went back the next year because you can only take languages for like a year.
Right.
But
yeah.
I took German, French, Spanish, Japanese, and linguistics as my 5 courses.
What? No. All at the same time.
Yes, I don't recommend doing that.
Wait a minute. Were you multilingual prior to going to school?
No.
So what made you want to learn them all at once? That seems like insane.
I thought it'd be fun.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm sorry. It's amazing. To me, I took Spanish for 2 years in college, and I grew up in Southern California, and even that to me was just mind-boggling, like trying to grasp it all. So the fact of you trying to learn 5 different languages at once is amazing. Do you speak any of them?
I speak English.
Now, when you took all the language classes, were you wanting to do something with that on a career level, or was it just, what am I interested in? I want to study that.
I thought working for the UN sounded really cool.
Oh, wow.
And I thought if I learned a bunch of languages, that would be awesome. And I always liked travel.
Yep.
And out of all of them, I found Japanese to be one of the easier.
Okay.
I found Japanese and German to be easier than French and Spanish.
Wow.
Which is kind of funny. And then I went back because, that wasn't enough. And I went back and took Chinese 1 year.
No way.
Yeah. And my cousin and I took the teaching English to speakers of other languages.
Yep.
We took that course. So I thought like my background in them would help because I can understand I can understand sentences from some of those languages now still.
Okay.
And I haven't used them in 19 years if I'm going to date myself.
Right. Yeah.
I haven't used the languages in 19 years. But I can still understand some sentences and words from the languages. So I can answer, but I can answer in English. Like I can't always
Got
piece
it.
together all of the.
But it is helpful, even the little bit that you've learned as you travel and as you meet other people. I feel like it's important for us to study as much as we can of other cultures and experiences and just travel in general. Like, talk a little bit about your love for travel, because I feel like I missed the boat. For years, I didn't travel like I do now. And I am so grateful for the experience of like getting to see the world and meet new people. And what is it about travel that draws you? Was that something that your family did together, or just since you've branched out?
When we were kids, we did a couple big trips. We would always go to BC. There's like this desert it's kind of like a desert town in BC. It's called the Soyuz.
Okay.
And it's beautiful. And so we would go there every summer for a week or two as a family. And that was always really great. But my family always wanted us to like grow and experience and really like to travel. So we did a couple of like cross country road trips, like where for the summer we would drive all the way across Canada. And so we did that one year where we drove all the way across Canada and back. And there was another year where we did it all across the States. And so it was always great, always fun. We had a couple winters, once or twice we went to Mexico, we went to Cuba. My mom, her mother had relatives in England, so my mom goes to England every now and then. I have yet to go to England. England I haven't been to, but I've been to like Paris, I've been to the Netherlands.
Oh, wow.
I went to China. I went to Japan when I was 16. So I've always wanted to see things. And
yeah. What's one of the biggest lessons you've learned traveling?
I guess always be open to the experience and expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
All the time. We learned when we were 16, we were in Japan and I was on an exchange because we would have all of the exchange students. I was with another girl. And our family had warned us. They said, be careful if it starts to get dark, because there are some men who will watch and prey on the younger girls. And so, of course, now like we're two 16-year-old girls and now we're terrified, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't communicate very well because we don't know that much Japanese. And here we are. And so we're on the train one day and this guy is looking at us and keeps looking at us, and we're talking to each other because that's who we can talk to,
right?
And we're just on the train to get back to our host family, like to get home, and it's not that late. And so I said, or I think the other girl said, she said, "Do you think this is one of those guys? Do you think like he's gonna follow us? Like, do you think we're unsafe?" And I said, "I don't know, but he does keep staring at us." And so we were kind of starting to get freaked out. And then he comes over and sits right beside us and he says, "It's because you speak English."
Oh.
And we were both like, foot in the mouth. We were so embarrassed. And he was this really nice guy from Hawaii.
Oh,
but we didn't know. But he was so great. And he's like, "No, like you girls are totally right to be like
cautious and
kind of freaked out." And he's like, "I was looking at you because I haven't heard English in a while." And he's like,
but he totally heard everything you were saying.
Oh yeah. And so we were so embarrassed. So it just kind of taught us to,
My wife and I were talking this morning about how, when we were kids, we realized that like we would just run around town like as kids. Like there wasn't this thing, and I don't know if it's this way in Canada, but at least in the States, there's this idea that like you have to overprotect your kids right now. Like that, it's the world is somehow dangerous and, you can't let them out by themselves too much. And we were just talking this morning, it's like the world is probably safer now than it was when we were kids. And yet we feel this fear of like protecting them from some potential danger. But at the same time, how much are they missing out on because, we're over guarding them.
Right.
It's a balance. You definitely got to try to figure out.
Yeah. I grew up in a small town and we would just like ride our bikes all the time. Like, I mean, I've grown up. If people ask, I say I'm born and raised in Calgary because I was born in Calgary.
Okay.
I was mostly raised in Calgary, aside from 5 years in a smaller town about an hour north of Calgary.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I am born and raised Calgarian. There's not very many of us.
Okay.
But growing up in Olds, I mean, there weren't a lot of people, so you could ride your bike everywhere. And
Yeah.
I'm very grateful to have had both.
Yeah.
Both experiences, but like coming from that into a big city, when we came back, I was like, oh man, it's big here, because, I didn't know it any other way.
Right. Yeah. Stuff to think about. Sorry, you've got me totally thinking now about how I'm parenting. It's funny. I'll tell my girls. I got 2 young girls, and I'll tell them stories of like when we were a kid and crazy stuff that happened, and they'll be like, "We need adventures," and I'm like, "Okay, but be safe." Do you have like a pinnacle dream? Like, if I could do this all the time, this is what I would be doing. Is there something like that for you?
I don't know if there is yet. I mean, I kind of, it changes all the time. Like, I feel like if I could travel and do magic all the time, that would be great.
Yeah.
But I think that's everyone's dream. I also really love social media. I like to be busy.
Yep.
So, I mean, I like to help consult with social media and marketing for people. I like to travel.
Yeah.
I like to have free time. I like to read. I like to go see live shows, so it's really tricky to say what the ultimate dream would be. I'm kind of almost living it, because I get to do magic and I still get to do all of these other things. I just don't get to do as much magic as I maybe like. So maybe like a little more magic.
A little more magic.
A little more magic, or like a lot more magic would probably be good. Well, I still get to do other things, though.
Right. Well, on that note, how can people get a hold of you if they're interested, either on the social media side, getting some ideas or coaching, or if they've got a magic project they want to talk to you about? What's the best way for people to connect with you, Gwyn?
Oh, for sure. So I am at Magic Assistant pretty much everywhere. So I've got themagicassistant.com. On Facebook, I am the Magic Assistant. Twitter, Instagram, Magic Assistant. And then I just started, it doesn't have a website yet or anything, but I've started Magic Assistants, ANCE.
Cool.
I'm so punny. Where that's going to be for more of the social media marketing and like act feedback side, because that way I can watch someone's magic act, because maybe they don't want to share it with another magician for fear of, they might take my routine.
Might borrow it.
They may borrow things. But I'm an assistant, so at least I have the working knowledge of magic.
Yeah.
To watch the routine and give feedback. I have a marketing background, so I'm very, I've got a lot of attention to detail.
Yep.
And I can watch and give, critiques and constructive feedback that way. Whereas hopefully they won't think that I'm going to borrow parts of their routine, because I also, being an assistant, I should be known that I can keep a secret.
Right. No, that's great. And I think I was just talking with my buddy John Accardo about how too often magicians don't use outside voices, directors, coaches. And I think collaboration is probably one of the strongest things you can do to take your act and your career to the next level. So,
oh, for sure, yeah. John Accardo's got a great podcast now too, doesn't he?
Yes, yeah. They just started. John and Chris Grace do a show called The Setup, talking about comedy and magic, which is fantastic.
And it's great. And I totally asked them for friends cards.
Yeah. Oh, did you do it? That's amazing.
I totally asked. I was like, oh my God, you guys, I need the friends cards. I need them.
Yeah, Chris, who co-hosts that with John, is such a great dude, and he's one of these guys who's like, he's got more ideas than he knows what to do with, so he's just like the most generous, like, yeah, do this, do that.
Yeah, I get about 1 million ideas a day, and then I just want to make them all happen.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear about that. How do you, because that to me leads to some frustration in my life, that, if I have an idea and I can't bring it to fruition, or I'm getting stuck in an area, or, maybe there's great projects going on, but I have these other ones that I really want to do that I'm not getting to, that can kind of be a frustration. How do you deal with, not just with magic, but with social media and the other things that you're doing, with kind of managing how much time should I invest in this versus other things? How do you make those decisions?
I try to prioritize as best I can, but if it's like a brand new baby of an idea, then I usually, baby it. And I'm like, oh, but I just think that this would be so great. Like, let me just try and do this.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I do stuff like that. So I immerse myself fully into things, and then it surrounds me for like a few days or weeks. And then if it's just not going anywhere, then I shelve it for a bit. And I'm like that with everything. Like I decided that I was going to learn to crochet when I found out I was going to become an aunt.
Okay.
So I was going to make a blanket.
Okay.
Start small, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Isn't it usually like pot holders or like coasters? Yeah.
Blanket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did, and it was great. I made a blanket for my niece, and rather than stick to what I knew and make a blanket similar to that for my nephew when we found out that he was going to be born, I bought this itty bitty baby yarn, not really realizing that there was a difference in like the different sizes of yarn and how long projects would take. If itty bitty baby yarn versus like normal size yarn.
Yeah.
And I learned this new technique to make all these little squares, and they kind of alternate, and it's very cute. And he's almost 3, and I'm still working on it. Because it takes time. It takes so long to do a row, and it just doesn't even feel like it's growing. And it's long. Like the whole thing covers me now. So I've made it long so that it'll cover him because, now he's 3. So, so it'll definitely cover him. So it's on its way to being finished. So the end is in sight. But
well, crocheting is one of those things you can't really. I would imagine it's hard to multitask while you're crocheting. You kind of just got to sit down and crochet. Yeah. And I can imagine
I only do it in the winter.
Yeah,
I refuse to touch it in like once the sun is out. No, I won't touch it anymore.
Right.
Once it's cold, sure. But if it's like the slightest bit warm and there's no snow on the ground, I'm not touching that.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Yeah. My grandmother still, she passed away 5 years ago, and she still owes me a blanket.
Oh, no.
She was working on it my entire life. So I've got my partially finished blanket from Grandma. But
see, and I got one blanket from my mom's mom, and she unfortunately has passed away. But I had this blanket before she passed away, so I loved it, and then we lost it.
Yeah.
So when I found out I was going to be an aunt, I was like, well, she needs a blanket. Grandma used to make these blankets. So the blanket. And then my aunt made me a replacement blanket. And then we found the grandma blanket like 10 years later. So it's been found. It's very safe. I know where it is. Yeah. It's not going anywhere. And now my niece has one, and my nephew almost has one. My niece actually has 2. I made like a big one with big yarn. Yeah, I made a big one with big thick yarn for both of them to share because they had this little house.
Yeah.
And she snatched it up.
She snatched it. See, that's going to be the point of contention when he's old enough to realize she's got 2 and he has none.
I don't think he's not so into it. Like she's very
oh, good.
She's very girly. She likes things that have been like made for her. She knows. She remembers. Yeah. And she saw it and she said, "What's this?" And my mom said, "Oh, Auntie made a blanket." And she's like, "Auntie blanket for Avery?" And I was like, yes. 'Cause how do you say no? You can't say no to that.
Right.
I was like, "Yes, for both of you, though." And she's like, "No, for Avery." And I was like, "Oh, okay, for you."
That's great.
Yeah. She's like, "No, we're not sharing this. This is for me. This is going on my bed. I've claimed it."
Yeah. It's funny. I was looking at your bio before we did the recording here, and I just saw so many things from magic assistant to dancer to modeling to baking. Like we haven't even talked about baking, and now I know about crocheting, and you're trying to learn 5 different languages.
I just do it all. I gotta be busy.
Yeah. You want to do all the things. Too much.
Yeah. You only live once. I gotta try everything, right?
Yeah. Is there another bucket list item or another bucket list, even like a routine that you like, I would love to do this, but I haven't done it yet?
I would like to relearn Japanese, I think, because I did find that one interesting and also a challenge because it's got the characters that go with it. So
yeah.
I I kind of want to try and relearn a language. As for like a routine, I would really like to start blogging, and I feel embarrassed to blog, which is like such a funny thing, but like, I think, who cares what I have to say?
Oh, see, it's that imposter syndrome we all have constantly. You know?
And so I'm working on that this year, by trying to, if it's something that like where I get like embarrassed by it or I feel weird doing it, then I try to do more of it. Like these podcasts, like,
right.
I feel like who wants to know about me? But then I think, well, maybe somebody does.
Yeah.
So,
no, if there's one thing I've learned from, I started this podcast on a whim 2 years ago, and now it's been like, well over 100 different conversations we've had. And it's just amazing to me that every time I ask someone about doing the show, they generally have that attitude of like, no one wants to hear what I have to say. And then at the end of the conversation, I go, I'm so glad that exists, that like there's this opportunity to share a person's story or their experience. And I think often we can undervalue our own experience because we're so busy seeing other people's stuff and comparing our stuff to their stuff, and just go like, just there is value to your life and your story, and it's important to share it. So yeah, blog away, Gwyn. Do it.
Well, we're gonna try. I'm gonna try.
Oh, that's awesome. I will definitely subscribe.
Okay, perfect. And I also want to try and get more light, I guess, brought to the world of assistants, because there's so many great assistants out there, like not just female, there's female assistants, there's male assistants. And I understand that the spotlight is meant for the magicians, and for sure, like, it's magician and assistant. I think that the assistants should still get recognition. Oh,
absolutely.
Some of them are so talented. Like, I've got a magic themed bathroom in my house.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's not shocking at all. I've got a magic themed bathroom and like a whole magic themed hallway. And in the bathroom, I'm trying to put some of the grates on the wall. So I've got some headshots. Like, I've got Joni Spina up there.
Yeah.
I've got Pam and Johnny Thompson up there. Like,
yep.
So I'm working on that, just to have like these fun spaces and to bring more knowledge and more light to some of the ones that have just paved the way for everyone.
Right. Yeah. And oftentimes don't, like you said, don't get the credit when it would not even be possible without them, Yeah.
And even if they haven't paved the way, if it's like a new assistant, why not? Like, have something that features who you are and what you do, like your podcast. Like, let's just showcase everyone. I'm huge on the support your friends philosophy. And I feel like, magic is such a small community that why can't we all just get along and support each other? Like, there's going to be some disagreements, but like at the end of the day, we're all in it for one reason and one reason alone. And that's that we love magic.
Yes.
So we all have that in common.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. There's really no room in the art for cattiness or for competition. I always say that another good performer is not my competition. The competition, or the person that's going to negatively affect your career, is a performer that's not doing so great that gives it a bad name. So the more we can surround each other and encourage one another and build each other up, I think it's going to, rising tides lift all ships. So we'll all do better.
It's true.
That's beautiful. Gwyn, I think I feel a podcast or a video series in your future with showcasing these other artists. I think that would be rad. I'd love to see it.
I think it'd be super fun.
So cool. I'm jazzed. I woke up and it was a good day, and now I'm having an even better day. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Me too.
Oh, friends, if you are listening right now, go click on the show notes, and I will put links to all of Gwyn's social media, her website. And if you got a project you want to talk about, reach out to her. I'm sure she'd love to hear about it and see how you guys can work together. Gwyn, thank you for doing this.
Thank you